Hello, and welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
This is your podcast if you like things that are mysterious and unexplained and murdery.
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 Killery.
Killeracious. We like
Ostentatious.
Yes, we like to talk about things that go bump in the night, things that are unknown and unknowable. And, before we forget, this podcast is not suitable for work or for young people or anyone with delicate ears.
We really just need to make a not safe for work intro and
Yes, we
play that at the beginning of each one.
Because sometimes we get halfway through and go, fuck, this is not suitable for...
By the way, now that we've cussed and talked about murder, we need to warn you that this show may not be appropriate.
Yeah, and it's not just language, but we do talk about some pretty, people killing other people.
Yeah, and last time, rapey entities.
Rapey entities,
so,
yes.
And no, we do not intend to ever get truly explanatory and too detailed on any rape cases. But still...
But just the concept.
Just watch.
Yeah.
Just watch who you're listening to this round. That's all. Blast it loud from your car speakers on your transit, though.
Yes.
Please. Okay.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
So what have you been doing lately?
Who are you?
Oh, shit. I am MB Partlow. I am a writer. I'm a knucklehead right now. I enjoy long walks on the beach.
Which is really hard to do in Colorado.
It is excruciatingly difficult, and I do not like pina coladas. Who are you?
What or doing what in the rain?
Getting caught in the rain.
Oh.
I do not enjoy that in Colorado either.
Not in Colorado. I did elsewhere.
Yes, because people don't realize here the rain is
ice cold.
It's about 34 degrees.
Right, it's 2 degrees above freezing when it falls out of the sky.
It doesn't matter what time
Even
of
in
year.
summer, that's right. It's so freaking cold.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you are?
I'm Shannon Lawrence. Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
I've always wanted to meet you.
Person in my house. I just like to invite in strangers and ask them who they are and talk to them record my conversations with them. I'm a writer. You can find more about me at thewarriormuse.com. Woot woot. Woot woot. So
it's going to be one of those episodes.
All right, now what have you been up to?
I watched Bad Boys for Life.
Oh.
Finally. It was free.
Oh, yeah, it's the new one. It was free where?
I don't know. I turned on the TV.
Oh.
I turned on cable and it said free movies for a week. Of course, that ends today I think it ends today.
Oh.
I was catching the last day of this. So I was paralyzed with indecision. Oh, what do I want to watch? So I was like, I haven't watched that. And I think Shannon said it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think so.
I love the scene where the Will Smith character is unconscious in the hospital and his friend is dyeing his beard.
Yes.
His goatee.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was good.
It was good. It was a good little revisit of a fun relationship where Lawrence isn't aging the best.
No, but that's realistic.
Yes, it's just... Oh, his ears. But, Will Smith, of course, is aging beautifully, but who would expect otherwise?
Yeah, and he's got some ears on him, too.
He does, but you don't notice it so much, because...
That's true, because
that's not what you're looking at.
No.
His ears.
What about you?
What did I watch this week? Movie-wise, I watched The Queen. It was a Shudder kick. The Queen of Black Magic was like an 80s Indonesian horror film. It was enjoyable. It was cheesy, but it was fun. She, she gets treated horribly in her town, her village, I guess, and then she goes out and this guy I don't know, witch doctor or something like that gets his hands on her and trains her to take revenge, and she takes excellent gory revenge on people.
Nice.
And yeah. And then it was crazy. And then I watched The Love Witch finally, which people were talking about a lot. It's newer.
The Love Witch?
Yeah, The Love Witch. Female writer, director, costumes. She did so much for it. But she films on 35 millimeter.
Oh.
And the colors are vivid and gorgeous. Now, people have been talking about how awesome this movie is. And while I could appreciate her... Yes, I can appreciate her writing and her keen eye for filmmaking, but the movie was a bit slow for me.
What's it about?
It's about this a love witch, actually. She does little potions. She just wants a man to love her. And so it was on Joe Bob's last drive-in, so he talked to her, brought her on, the director.
Oh, nice.
And interesting lady. I'll watch what she does next, even though the movie wasn't necessarily so much for me. But she said basically this love witch is making up these potions, right? Or she'll put something into the drink, and she wants the man to fall in love with her, because it's all she wants is to find love, and she's willing to do whatever and make him feel special. And it's very interesting. It seems to be set in the 60s. And so it's this whole, she talks almost like in a patriarchy supporting way, right? Like, oh, you just need to give your husband, if he wants sex, give him sex, and if he wants this, she just so badly wants to be loved. And so, and it goes terribly wrong. And the director was like, I wanted to think about what would happen to a man if he felt as much as the women feel emotionally in a relationship, and it ends up killing the men from their own emotions. Like, it just overwhelms them and they can't go on, basically. So this is her idea of it. And she said, so maybe the reason men don't feel as strongly as women is because they can't let themselves do it, is her theory or whatever. So anyway, interesting film. Again, vivid, gorgeous color. Like in the beginning, she's got red lipstick and she's got blue, like this turquoise eyeshadow and black hair, and she's dressed all in red, and she's in a red Mustang convertible driving along the beach. Yeah, so, and everything in it is vivid. She always either has turquoise or like lavender eyeshadow and the big, but she'll dress all in black, or she'll dress all in pink, or she'll so.
I want to see it now just for the visuals.
Oh, it is lovely. But I was like, Jeff and I both pull out our phones and start playing on it, and right there is a sign.
That's not good.
And again, I've seen people raving about it on Facebook in the horror community. It just wasn't for me. I don't regret watching it. I just won't probably watch it again. What have you read?
Lots of stuff. Because it was a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
it was. A week off. So I had a lot of time to read. So I read the new Michael Connelly, which is The Law of Innocence, and it's about the lawyer. It's not about Harry Bosch, the investigator. It's about his half brother, who's the Lincoln lawyer.
Gotcha.
Okay, so it's about that character, and that character, Mickey Haller, he's kind of hard to like.
Did it still pull you in? Did you care enough about the character?
I read the whole book. I kind of did, but I think he did a good job, but it wasn't. A lot of it turns on points of the law, and that just doesn't.
You're not a John Grisham reader, then?
No, I have. When he first hit it big, I read 3 or 4, and then I was like, these all. I know how it's going to end by the end of the first chapter, so don't get me wrong. I read books that are like that, but not him. Okay. In particular, there's nothing wrong with John Grisham, and Lord knows he made a fortune off the movies. So I read that, and that was okay. It was, but it's very lawyery and points of the law, and he's been accused of murder, and he has to prove he didn't do it. Boom.
Boom.
But I also read, I read 2 other books. One I really liked, and one which was kind of full of tropes. So I read Code Blues, that's plural, by Melissa Yee. It's Y-I. And it was really fascinating to me because it's set in Canada, and this woman is a med student. She's just starting, what's after med school?
Internship?
The internship.
Okay.
There's like 87 steps to becoming a doctor, and she's not a doctor yet, but she's not still in med school. So she's moved to a new town to do this fellowship, and so I found that really fascinating. It didn't make her, the character seemed to be well-rounded in that she had a family she was dealing, her parents that she was dealing with, and she had med school issues, and she had issues with some of the other students, but she was forming new friendships. So it wasn't all glossing over the tough parts, nor was it making it seem unrelentingly bleak, trying to get through it. And what really fascinated me was the main character is Asian. although she was born and raised in Canada, and some of the subtle racism that she encounters that I don't think about on a daily basis. And it's not all necessarily stuff it's not super bad, but it's just the stupid assumptions people make.
Yeah, which tends to be a big problem in the Asian community. They don't get the same kind of racism as some others.
Right.
But there's a lot more, I think, stereotyping.
Yes. Well, obviously, if you're Asian, you must know a martial art.
You must know martial art. You're a terrible driver. You're smart. You like cameras and taking pictures. And you have a small dick.
And you have, well, unless you're a woman.
Well, yes.
And you play classical music.
Right. You have a what is it? Dragon Mother?
Yes.
What, Tiger Mom? What
Yes.
is it? Tiger Mom.
Tiger Mom.
Yeah.
And you know all the other Asians in town. Even if you're in...
Okay, that's all the races do it.
That's true.
I'm just going to start assuming every full white person I know knows all the other white people. You know that white person that lives up the street from me?
I like that.
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? I always get, hey, I have this one Indian friend. They'll say their name. Do you know them? No. Have I met them? No, they live in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Well, no. Thank you for... It's a slightly larger community than that.
A little bit. So it was really good. And it was a mystery. I got really into mysteries.
Okay.
And then I read one called Grave New World.
I've heard of that.
And it's the woman doing the supernatural crime scene cleanup.
Oh.
It's written by 3 women. I didn't write down their full names, but I did write down their last names because it was impossible to read on the cover. It all blends together like they have it's one person with 14 names. So their last names are Quinn, Lunetta, and Lynn.
Huh.
And it was interesting.
That was the one that was cliche ridden?
Yes, because every male the woman encounters finds her incredibly sexy and attractive. She has no realization that she's at all attractive. But every man she meets, she's very sexually attracted to. And I'm like, good Lord, are you 13-year-old boy?
Or 13-year-old me. So we talked about in the last episode that pretty much that's for everybody.
Yeah, it's like all the men are gorgeous, and it just was that, I can't believe he's attracted to me. I'm like, really? Because the last 10 men you encountered all wanted to marry you within 10 minutes or take you to bed or both.
Yeah, I'm pretty much over that.
And it was an interesting kind of a quirk, this cleaning up after supernatural crimes. I really like that. And there was some really interesting problem solving in that aspect. But I was like, really? Can you not think with your little head for just a minute?
With 3 different people writing it, did you find that it seamlessly blended together, or did you start recognizing different voices?
No, I didn't realize until after I read it that it was 3 people.
Okay.
You know me. I don't look at the details. I just tend to plunge in. Why
is this book I'm reading?
I get to the end of a book and I go, that's Christian fiction. I've had that happen to me like twice. Obviously, they were good stories because they drew me in and kept me involved and made me... And I went,
I do that more. Now, I will have bought it, right? Whatever it is. So probably it won't ever be Christian fiction. Sorry, not sorry. But...
those I get at the library, usually.
I will hold on to them for so long before I get around to reading them and then I won't read the back because I'm like, all right, I'm just going to jump into this. Although sometimes you jump into a book and you really need to have read it to know what it's about, which tells me that they're starting at the wrong place, but okay. Ooh, so I read Monster, She Wrote, The Women Who Pioneered Horror and Speculative Fiction.
I love that book so much.
It was good.
Yes.
And it made me want to... I got lots of story ideas. It's just biographies of these women, right? But somehow I had all these ideas, and it's Lisa Kroger or Kruger. There's an umlaut over the O, so I don't know if that makes it Kruger or Kruger. I took German in 8th grade, so I don't remember this. Even though I remember actually a lot of words and phrases and stuff, I don't necessarily remember what to do with umlaut. And Melanie R. Anderson.
That is such a good book.
It's really good. I'm going to keep it. It's not going to be one that gets donated or whatever.
I have it in my living room, and I pick it up and read about one woman. I read it like most people, like normal people read short stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I probably should have. I got it all nestled into bed with it and was like, oh, for some reason I thought it was going to be a short story by each woman with a little bit about them, I guess.
Oh, no. It's all...
But it's all biographies and, you know, here's what we recommend you reading by this person and here's what we recommend you reading similar to this person.
Yes, and I was so mad because some of these women I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt like I should have. I'm like, fuck all you male writers.
Well.
Who shoved these women out of the way.
Yeah.
Not all men do that. But.
No, but I will say the horror community is still working on it, which is why there's a Women in Horror Month.
Yes.
Which may be changing to March.
Yes.
But everybody needs to get on the same page. So, yeah, that didn't happen this year, so this year's been really scattered. I'm like, when do I celebrate it, you guys? So, like, I was featured on our Horror Writers Association of Colorado Springs branch here in February, and then I'll be on a different site here in March. So
nice.
Because one went with the new, and one because they decided the day before.
Yeah,
they decided on the last day of January to make it March, and I'm like, sorry, people already have stuff planned. You can't make that decision.
Yes,
one day before the month is started. People have scheduled things. Interviews have already happened. You can't do it. Is what I'm saying. But I'm excited because the one that comes out in March this month, I get a trading card. So it'll be my third trading card.
Nice.
So I had to send in a different picture. Here you go.
Where are your trading cards?
I don't have the physical trading cards. I did briefly. I gave them away as a.
You'll have to show me those.
Oh, sometime. I gave them away at the Bloody Valentine event last year.
Oh.
I gave away a whole set for the auction with some books. It was pretty awesome. But anyway, how about TV shows?
Oh my God, I don't think I've watched anything new.
Wow.
I know. What can I say? I've fallen down on the job.
So we went back to an old favorite because we just haven't found a new comedy show to keep us entertained. Sitcoms don't do it. So we're watching The Detour again on Hulu, which it's inappropriate and it's funny as hell. And had that show been on HBO with what they pull off on what channel was it on? FX or something? I don't know. On a regular cable show, the stuff they would do if they were on HBO it's so inappropriate. But I love that show, The Detour. It's about a family. They're not terribly bright, and they're constantly fleeing the law because her father is a trafficker of some sort, and her sister's a mess, and yeah, they're just always in trouble and hiding and moving. So they end up in this little Alaska town.
I will try to look for it.
Oh my God, it's funny. And then I started last night something called Firefly Lane that has Katherine Heigl and Sarah Chalk.
Yes, I've heard of that. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, it's
based on a book by.
Oh, is it?
Yes, Firefly Lane. Oh, I can't remember who it's by. It's somebody you would know the name if I could
probably
come up with it.
Yeah, it's just about two friends.
We could pause and look it up.
Oh, I don't care enough.
Okay. It might be somebody who we've had at conference.
Oops.
And I just can't remember because I was like, oh yeah.
I guess we might as well.
Whoops.
All right. We paused and we looked up the writer.
It's Kristen Hanna.
Okay. So yeah, it follows them, kind of starts when they're adult, but there's little flashbacks to when they were teens and first met and their backgrounds and stuff. It's just good. It's a drama.
I heard people were like, is it like the book? Is it not like the book? And I'm like, I don't care.
Who knows?
Now, I have already ranted and raved about The Watch, haven't I? BBC America. It's like, very loosely, I had to stop watching it. It was so irritating.
That's the one. Yeah. You did. Did you eat anywhere interesting?
We talked about so many of them last time, but I did some cooking.
Oh.
I know in the past I've raved about the New York Times cooking recipe website. I just love it. I found this recipe Friday for cheddar beer bread.
Okay.
It wasn't bread. It was rolls. And I just went, I'm going to make that. And I did. And they're so fucking delicious.
Do you make something like that? Does the beer replace the yeast or something?
It replaces the water.
Oh, okay.
It still uses yeast. So you can make beer bread without yeast, but this happened to have yeast, so.
Gotcha.
And I made a batch of my world famous booze brownies.
Yummy.
And took them to my coworkers for Valentine's Day. Because I didn't need an 8x13 or 9x13 pan of brownies in my house.
No. I made muffins. You saw that's why there's mini muffins too.
Oh, they're delicious.
Instead of 2 batches of big full size ones. Except I keep eating the little ones. So I'm really not eating any less.
After you eat, 7.
Last night I had one of the big ones straight out of the oven because they're blueberry muffins is what they're called, and I got it from the recipe from a mom's forum I was on. Well, it was an expecting club as they called them when I was pregnant with my first, and it has not just fresh blueberries but blueberry pie filling in it as well.
They're good.
It's good.
I can.
And so that makes them a little bit bluish purple, the whole muffin. Okay, I did go to someplace new finally.
Where did you go?
I lost my ever-loving mind, and I went to my husband, and I said, first thing when I got up, I walked out to the garage where he was working on something, and I said, tonight, we're getting food from somewhere new. I don't give a shit what we feed the kids, because for once, I don't want to have to worry about what the kids are willing to eat.
I hear you.
I have been either making dinner and having to do all that plan. I don't think people who don't do this understand how much of your mental energy it takes to plan out the meals, do the grocery shopping, make the meals, figure out what the kids will eat, especially because there are various reasons that eating is a big deal for both of my kids right now. And I was just like, I don't care if we sit in the car and eat. I don't give a shit. But you and I are going somewhere. You are going to handle whatever they're going to eat. And we are going to get grown-up food from somewhere new. So we went to Atmosphere Gastropub.
Where is that?
It's up off of Research.
Wow, Atmosphere.
Which it's by the In-N-Out burger that everybody's losing their shit over and that I have zero desire to go
that
to.
had like 37 employees with COVID within the first week.
Right.
Yeah. And
people were lining up for hours to go there, and I'm just like, why don't you try a local burger, which is a hell of a lot better. It's funny because in the food forums there's this one woman who just responds to everybody, it's fresh, fast. That's her response to everybody, and I'm like, shut the hell up. Anyway, Atmosphere Gastropub, super good. The whole reason we went there is because on one of those pages that I follow on Facebook that talks about restaurants that you can go to now, they were posting, it was crab cake sliders.
Ooh.
And all this magical looking stuff. So we got those, of course, because my husband's big on crab cakes. He loves crab cakes.
Yeah, what's not to love?
And so good. And we got Brussels sprouts it was pork and like some sort of fried pork and just oh my god, it was good. And then we got something, it's called Cup of Bacon, and it's actually fried pork belly.
Ooh.
It's like we didn't go there to eat all healthy. Oh, there was a fried egg on top of the Brussels sprouts, and it was nothing I would ever have thought. That's why you go to a gastropub, right?
I guess.
To combine. Somehow the blend was amazing. And listen, I'm not even supposed to eat egg, and that day I was like, all bets are off. I'm eating whatever I want to. I don't care what happens. But it was like the saltiness from the Brussels sprouts mixed with the fried egg.
Ooh.
Oh my god, it was good. We didn't have any alcoholic beverages there. We didn't want any. And actually, since we waited to go until like 7 something on a weeknight, we got to sit in the restaurant and eat, and it was amazing because there was hardly anybody in there.
I know. I'm like, so we had another Hello Fresh box.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get the notice saying you need to either pick out your meals or skip or whatever. And I went through my email. I went through the trash. I didn't get. So they picked out 4 meals for me and sent them. And they weren't bad meals, but it was like, I said to Joe, we got 4 meals the next 4 days. This is what we're eating.
Yeah.
And one night, Thursdays, I usually work till 6:30. And I said, okay, so you pick out which one you would like to cook on Thursday. And he was like, do I have to? I said, if you want to eat. And he was like, all right. I said, we're not wasting this because we paid for this one.
Yeah. Right?
So,
did you remember to do your next order?
And I canceled. I was like, I can't do this. I can't be responsible for going in every other week and canceling this. But a friend of mine is doing a different one. I can't remember which one, and just sent me 3 free meals from them. And I'm like, I'm going to hold off because I like to pick what I eat. It's hard to say, I'm going to want chicken on Wednesday.
Right. Probably when the kids are still at home, it's different because you're like, all right, I got to plan out what I want.
Yes.
So, yeah, I posted asking people for recommendations for those. So I need to go through and look at them, the ones that people recommended. And it sounds like you can do a pretty good racket just signing up and getting your freebies from people at first. But I want to do it so that each of the kids picks a meal and then they prepare that meal that week.
I will say they are, at least with HelloFresh, which could sponsor us if they wanted to. Or, just send us some free meals.
Right.
The directions are very simple and very clear. Now, it does this week we got into a pattern. We had beef bulgogi bowls. That was the only thing that was a little outside of the norm. Otherwise, it was you peel the potatoes, whether white or sweet potatoes, put them in a pot, start them cooking. You roast a vegetable, you sear your protein, and do a pan sauce. I mean, it tastes good, so...
Yeah, eventually I'll try it, and I'm sure I'll report it on here.
As we do everything.
Here are all the things that happened.
But the thing is, I like to do things like put a big pot of soup in the crock pot and let it cook all day. So at dinner time, or I like to do things that are timed out differently.
Yeah.
And this is pretty much, once you start, there's no walking away and sitting down for a few minutes.
Yeah, I got all the stuff to make fresh spaghetti sauce.
Ooh,
it's a really good recipe I have, and I have yet to be able to do it because it has to simmer on the stovetop for, 4 hours or 3 hours, and then it's like an hour prep.
You can throw it in the crock pot.
Okay. I need to do it.
I swear.
Everything's going to go bad. There's onions and fresh green peppers, and I always have fresh garlic, so...
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, before I forget, I want to give a shout out because I want to give a shout out to 2 people who are both named Amy. And one is here in Colorado Springs, and she listens to us and she comments sometimes.
It's awesome.
Quite frequently, which we greatly appreciate. And also to my sister-in-law, Amy, who is in Abu Dhabi, who listens to us. And she goes, it's so nice hearing your and Shannon's voices. Yeah. It's like I'm... there, except I don't get to talk.
That would be problematic.
Yeah. So, shout outs to the Amy's.
Hi, Amy's. We appreciate
If I could
you.
just get my niece Amy to listen. I like to keep all my Amy's swept up
all
into
in a row.
Neat pile. Are we ready to?
Yeah, this time you go first.
I do. So I'm going to talk about the Indian Lake project.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So my sources, I did use Wikipedia. There's a website called the Indian Lake Project. Wikipedia, because there are rabbit holes. I got so many ideas for future podcasts off of this one thing I was researching. Then there is a website called Adirondack Experience.
Oh. I'm
going to talk about what I got from there at the end, because that is not a serious thing.
Okay.
But it's fucking hilarious. So, this is in the Adirondack Park. It's sort of in the bottom third central of the Adirondack Park, which if you don't know where that is, it's in upstate New York. Indian Lake is about 142 miles northeast of Syracuse. I figure that's kind of a good marker for people, because it was telling people where it was in relationship to Utica. And I'm like, who knows where Utica... I mean, I know where Utica is. No. Anyway, as of 2010, the population is 1,352 people.
Well,
it is self-proclaimed the moose capital of the Northeast.
Okay.
I was like...
I had to think about it for a minute, because if they hadn't said Northeast, I would have been like, no, that's probably Montana.
Probably. There's lots of seasonal hunting camps, and the actual lake is mostly within the city limits, the town limits. It's not a city. There are no stoplights in the town.
Ooh.
They don't have an established police force in town, so they rely on the state police and the county sheriffs.
Is this one of those places that has like village this and village, or what is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The population density, I never write down stuff like population density because who cares? But it's 5.8 people per square mile.
Sounds like my kind of place, but
Right?
I guess I'll withhold that until I hear what the story is.
Well, it's a little cold in the winter, but it is not hot in the summer.
It's -3 outside right now.
Yeah,
I know
I
it
know.
gets way more colder. That's not even great grammar. I don't care. Other places. I know that. That's why I live in Colorado.
True. So the lake itself, Indian Lake, was the inspiration for the 1960s hit single Indian Lake by the Cowsills.
All right. Well, I'm not even going to pretend to have heard that song.
I haven't either. I should have looked it up and listened to
Okay.
it. I did not. If I can, I will find it and
Post it
on the Facebook page. So, on the Indian Lake Project website, it's a blog. It's a blog site. This guy named John, which is an assumed name, it first appeared on October 2nd of 2005. And he's retelling the story of a mysterious metal box that his uncle found in the summer of 1997 in the woods near Indian Lake. He tripped over it. He tripped over the corner of this metal box. He thought he tripped over like a twig or a piece of wood sticking out. Now I would have fallen on the box and gashed myself open because that is my luck. That is how graceful I am. So it's supposed to be in the middle of the woods. It's far off of the established hiking trails. And it took him a while to dig this thing out of the ground because he only had sticks. He wasn't going in geared up like a mountain man. But it wasn't locked. Down this metal box, it wasn't locked. So, it was easy to open. And inside, it contained 21 water-damaged photos because it has been out there for a long time. Mostly of children.
Oh.
But yeah, that's what their reaction was. 3 8mm movie reels and some documents.
Okay.
Yeah, so everybody goes, ugh, but it is creepy, but not in that way.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't. No, I don't. I couldn't do that. No. So anyway,
There's a whole movie called 8mm.
Yeah. So John closes the first blog post by stating that his uncle gave him the box and the contents in 2002, shortly before he died. His death didn't have anything to do with the box. Unfortunately, the gentleman appears to have had cancer of some sort, so that's what killed him.
Sure.
But his uncle said he wished he had never found it, and after John went through it, he felt it was his duty to share the story that the contents of the box seemed to tell.
Okay, was it his duty to report it to the police at all, or did he just keep the box?
Well, no, he made it public through his blog, but it wasn't anything actionable because it's old.
Gotcha.
So it's not anything that's going on right now. So he posts a picture of an old metal box. He posts a picture of a long wooden building in the woods. And I'm like, I've been in the woods in the Adirondacks. That could be fucking anywhere. I mean, there's a lot of old buildings. There's a lot of shit in the woods. There's a picture of two guys in uniform in front of a large wooden sign with the image of a Native American head wearing a headdress.
Okay.
So this is supposed to be the sign for the Indian Lake Project. And I'm like... And immediately my first reaction was, I don't think those are U.S. military uniforms. There's something that doesn't look right about the uniforms. That was just my thought. So there's a picture of a man in uniform standing with 3 boys who are probably like 8 to 10 years old. There's also a larger photo, but it's cropped, so you can see that there are people in uniform on either side, but there's a woman standing in the middle and there's like a young girl standing in front of her. And then there's a bunch of small scratched up headshots of some children. So they all have a name like Roger or Sam or Sally in quotation marks at the top along with a number, which John believes indicates that was like their identifier number. So they went up to 837, so he believes not necessarily that there were 800 and some kids there at one time, but that 837 kids went through this camp. Some had a singular number underlined, like the number 4, which he thinks is an indication of their age when they arrived at the camp. So, he's speculating in this blog about who buried the box and why, how long were the children kept there, and where did they come from? All reasonable questions.
Yeah.
I'm like,
where are they now?
You've caught me, John. What's the answer? What have you come up?
Go on, John.
Then there's this picture. It's kind of an interesting picture. It's two men. One is a civilian and one is in a uniform, but that has no insignia on it. And the military man's face has been obscured. It's like magic markered over, not like scribbled, but like it was specifically to obscure his face. Right? I said that a lot. He posted some stills from the movie reels. He claims he hasn't watched the movies because they've been sitting in this box for a number of years and he doesn't want to damage them and not be able to. One of them is an image of children behind bars. It almost looks like they're in a tiny jail. I mean, because the bars are small. If it was a regular jail,
you could slip through.
Like Mayberry. That's the image in my head. The kids would be able to slip out through. To me, it's pretty obvious when you look at those particular pictures. Some of the children appear to be blind. And John says when you look through the footage, when you look through all of it, it appears to be the kids are getting a meal. They're being fed. Then he posts, so this is killing me because we do this podcast. This one, I didn't realize it the first time I read this, but this time I was like, I gotta call bullshit, John. On October 4th, what year? We're in 2005. So on October 4th, John posts an email address at the end of his blog saying, if anybody wants to contact me, here's how you can do it. On October 5th, he posts some more photos of this boy who seems to be named Roger. And he's obviously getting older in the pictures, so he says this is proof that the children were kept there for years. So on the 6th, he's already got questions.
Wow, that's fast, John.
In 2005.
Yeah.
He got questions immediately. They happen, every time he gets questions, it happens to be something he wants to talk about.
Yeah. I had a monetized blog in 2005, actually, because it was called Not a Test Tube Baby.
Oh.
And that was the URL because it was about parenting and my child was IVF.
And
so
did you get questions?
Absolutely not. I got paid per click, did I get paid I got paid. That's all I remember.
So the first question, what do you think the nature of this base was? Because they believe it was there in the 1950s. So it's not anything that's going on now. His answer, it was a military installation which conducted experiments in both mind control and to a lesser extent ESP using children. Although I have some evidence from the box that they used adults at first, children were placed them when it was realized that a child's mind is much easier to condition. And I'm like, what proof? John, you're not showing us the proof.
Yeah. Dear John,
no. So, the second question was, where did all the kids come from? Well, no shit. Because in a small town, you can't have 800 kids go missing.
Right, 1,300 people are the population.
No, they would notice. So, his answer is, I can tell you what I know. At least 2 orphanages in upstate New York authorized adoptions for a person with a military background or who were currently in the military, almost exclusively during the years of 1952 to 55. I also think it is possible for children who went missing during those years from the surrounding areas to be part of the ILPs, the Indian Lake Project's numbers. And I'm like, well, there is a military presence up there. It is Fort Drum now. I can remember when it was called Camp Drum. So I'm like, well, it would make sense that, anyway. I'm like, all right, John, I think you're skating. But here's here's rabbit hole number 1. There's some interesting historical overlap in this time period. So I've actually written the words, hang with me here.
I'm thinking of, what is it, Plum Creek or Plum Island or something like that, where they did, was another military, maybe I'm mixing it up because it's by DeMille or whatever. But there were other military encampments that studied ESP and were trying to have soldiers so they could,
Well, we're coming back around to some of that too.
Gotcha!
I'm not kidding you. I was so far down the rabbit hole, I was like, I can't even see daylight. So, this is going to sound like it doesn't connect, but I promise you I will make it. Mm-hmm. Maurice Duplessis was the premier of the province of Quebec, Canada, from 1936 to 1959. There's a tiny period of time in there, 2-3 years, where he was not, but for the most part. But definitely he was the prime minister of that province in the 50s. It is a period of time referred to as by journalists as the Great Darkness. Because during this time, 20,000 Canadian children were purposefully misidentified as mentally ill by the provincial government in order to steal funding from the federal government. It wasn't actually stealing, it was grifting more. So what happened?
Fraudulently receiving.
They are referred to as the Duplessis orphans. And that story gets its own segment one of these days. But in a nutshell, and this is a gross oversimplification, the Canadian government, the federal Canadian government, subsidized $1.25 per day for orphans. But they subsidized $2.75 a day for psychiatric patients. So they took all these friggin' kids and reclassified kids who had nothing wrong with them as mentally ill.
That's, you know what? Canada seems to be, they like to pretend that they're better than the U.S., but they very much also stole First Nations children straight from, like, right out from their yards and shit. And they have a history of stealing children for various reasons.
And I know in the news lately, in the past 2-3 years, there's been a lot about the mother-baby homes in Ireland. Yeah. And I didn't say it. Oh, I forgot. The Catholic Church is also implicated in this.
Oh, yeah. That's
They've
not
denied
at all surprising.
All, but
they deny fuck the Catholic Church.
So you might be going, why is she meandering on about Canada? Well, New York State shares, I didn't realize it was this much, 445 miles of border with the provinces of Ontario and Quebec. And it would be less than a day's drive to get from Quebec to Indian Lake. I'm not saying that's where the children came from. It's interesting.
So when they come down here for customs-free days, because I had friends who come down from Ontario for something like that, right? And
depending on the exchange rate.
Like you could just grab a kid, you could bring one over.
Drop them off, get some donuts.
Get your customs-free chocolate or, I don't know.
Gas. Depending on where it's cheaper, either the Canadians are coming across to gas up on this side, or the Americans are going across the bridge to gas up on that side.
Fast and probably harder to do now.
It's much harder because now you need a passport.
Because they haven't built their wall yet, but
they're probably thinking. But
yes, now you need a passport, and you actually have to make some effort.
When I first read this, I posted on Facebook because that's the answer to everything. But I asked friends in northern New York if anybody had ever heard about this. Because I never had. So I was like, oh. So what really floored me was one of my stepsisters said that as a young teen, her father would threaten to send her to the reform school in Indian Lake if she misbehaved. Oh. This would have been in the mid-70s. So this was before any of this was out in a blog. And so that really kind of struck me as very curious. Yeah. And a guy I went to high school with has a camp, not on Indian Lake, but one of the nearby lakes, and he heard about it. He heard that it was a spot for CIA mind control experiments, and he heard it from the boat repair guy in roughly 2010.
It's fun though, because people actually heard about it.
Yeah, so that one they could have heard about it because of the blog. The one in the 70s, obviously not possible.
It's like the whole Goebbels thing where, if you don't behave, we're going to send you to the, it's basically like we're going to send you to the Mangler. We're going to send you into the ironworks. Yes. Maybe don't threaten your children with stuff like that. I don't know.
So this 1st October of 2005, he posts a lot. He's posting every couple of days. We get some stills from another film, and this time it's a young boy with headphones on. And the little boy has his hands like right below the headphones, and it looks like a woman's hands are over the little boy's hands. Not in a restrictive way, just like she's helping him adjust them or something. Now, John says he's looking at the stills, not watching it as a movie, and he claims that there are high-pitched sounds being played, either to stimulate a programmed response or as part of the conditioning. And to me, it looks like a hearing test. Did you get those in school?
Yeah.
They put the headphones on you, and you had to knock every time you heard that. That's what that looks like.
We were still getting checked for like lice, and we got our fat checked with calipers in Maryland still in elementary school. I don't remember them doing it, but we would have.
Wow.
I don't know. Maybe it was monthly, and just call us in, and your class would go, and you'd line up, and they'd do the lice check, and they'd do the calipers.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember the hearing test. And it also looked like it could have been some form of speech pathology.
Okay.
You know, like she's helping him. I don't know.
I think that I've heard about the using tones with it before, and their sensory. I could swear sensory deprivation was part of how they trained the adults.
That could be. So then John brings up a couple days later. He brings up 2 CIA projects, which are verifiable, because that's another rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
There's Project Artichoke, which came out of Project Bluebird, which was researching interrogation techniques. And he also references Project MK Ultra.
That's the one, yeah. That's the big one everybody knows about.
Yeah, which sounds kind of like margarine, I don't know, or a beer, a light beer, which, among other questionable acts, holy shit, I kept going, no, they did not. Among other questionable acts, they regularly dosed both volunteers and unsuspecting civilians with LSD.
Yeah. Didn't they put it in? They put it in like a water source in a town or something.
In one case, there were 7 volunteers in Kentucky who were dosed for 77 consecutive days.
Oh my God, their brains will never be right.
There used to be a joke in the CIA. You could be dosed with LSD pretty much any fucking time, and you wouldn't know when it was coming. They started asking for volunteers, and then they wanted to see how you would naturally react. One guy killed himself. He got so depressed after tripping on acid that he threw himself out of a building.
Do you get sign a disclaimer when you
get
your job at the CIA?
So that's another story for another day. I will
the shop as a
yes,
yeah.
So John says he believes the Indian Lake project was part of Project Artichoke. Who names these things? And the records were destroyed to keep the use of young children away from the public. Mm-hmm. Which would make sense.
That makes total sense.
He says click on the links for more info. That's real. I mean, info from 2005. There's much better info on these. You trust me, you can find a ton. And trust me, I'm going to be talking about this sometime in the future. So then there's a rando photo of a man in an army helmet in the woods. And John is pondering why someone buried this box, since it would have been easier to burn all the evidence if you didn't want it found. That's true enough. So he's speculating. He thinks either the person wanted it to be found or was planning to come back for it later.
He probably expects it to be found earlier than it was.
That's also possible. He speculates that this mystery person was trying to document what was happening to get the word out, that he or she was going to be some kind of whistleblower. More suspiciously well-timed questions, including, have you ever been to this area your uncle talked about? And it's like, why, yes, just this weekend I'm going to a family wedding. So I'm going to fly up a day early so I can walk around. And he does. I mean, at one point he finds a nickel from 1957, and I'm like, that's not proof of anything.
I probably have some in my coin jar there.
Yeah. More structures, more photos of old structures in the woods. They look like they're like concrete frames of buildings. He says he doesn't know what they are, but he knows they don't belong there. He does not say how he knows this. He said that there's a lot of very evocative writing, because he's talking about how finding those old buildings all by himself in the woods made the whole thing feel real to him. And he felt like he wasn't alone out there. And he posted a photo of the nickel.
I'm not alone. There's nickels out here.
There's people with holes in their pockets out here.
Right? Oh, shit. Or animals with thumbs. So they were carrying around the nickel.
Or, a fucking crow.
An ooh shiny bird.
Yeah, right? An ooh shiny bird. So he posts the photo of the woman with the little girl standing in front of her again. And there's a wedding photo that came out of this box. And he says, and it's a woman in a wedding gown, a man in a uniform. And he says that the two women are the same person. That's her wedding picture. And then here she is. I don't think they look anything alike. But, okay, John. Also, at this point, I start looking at uniforms from the 1950s, and these don't match anything that was. I didn't look at Coast Guard, but I looked at Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines.
Okay.
Didn't look like any of those. Oh, so somebody sends him a question and says, John, what about these documents you keep talking about? And he says, as I myself am going, John, when are you going to post the friggin' documents that you say prove everything? And he says he's afraid to share them because they have names and dates that could prove dangerous.
Isn't that all the better reason to share it? Because if you don't share it, then you're setting a target on yourself.
Yes. So by the end of the month, we're still in October of 2005, he posts that further posts from him could be dangerous. He's getting hang-up calls, and his home was broken into and searched. But he assures us that the box and its contents were safely hidden somewhere not in his house. He has to put the safety of his family first, so he's going to stop. And he does for a few months.
Okay, again, I declare that if you say I have these incriminating documents, but I'm not posting them publicly, therefore somebody would target your family. But okay, John, go ahead.
Yeah. So, mid-2006, he starts posting again. His wife left him. What a shocker. He's totally obsessed with this metal box and these pictures and thinking people are following him. I can't imagine why she'd leave that. But she left him, and he moved to New York so he could be closer, so he could go search more. A woman who he refers to as Mary has reached out to him through email and says she was directly involved, and he says, with the Indian Lake Project. And he says because of some of the things she shared with him, he believes her. She says her father was stationed there, and she gives him a name, and he does find it on the camp roster. One of the documents he has is a roster of personnel who are there. So that name is on it. So that gives her credibility. Then he doesn't post again till October, and now he says he can't trust her because the things that she's saying don't add up, and he thinks she's trying to... Instead of trying to help him, he now thinks she's trying to get information from him. Like, why don't you send me all the originals so I can look at them? And I'm like, yeah. No. So he cuts off contact with Mary. He posted more movie stills. It's a man in a suit in a room full of cots. Yeah. Later, he posts the video clip of a decaying shed he found in the woods.
Did it decay on the video?
No, sadly, I kept waiting for something to happen.
Right.
Even a squirrel would have been
Blair Witch bullshit.
Yes, but no. Oh, but that's going to come around.
Oh, God.
Then Mary starts sending him stuff. So she sends him a photo of U.S. soldiers and Nazi soldiers from the end of World War II. And she says one of the German soldiers is her father. And John is... But then he couldn't have been in the U.S. service, could he? As part of the... I mean, would the U.S. have let someone join the army who was in the Nazi army?
God, I don't know.
I would hope not.
There are a lot of things I would hope, a lot of people I would hope they wouldn't allow to join the armed forces here, and it didn't stop them before. So
yeah. So John thinks that one of the American soldiers in this photo is also in the Indian Lake Project photos.
We're going to get to Mengele or...
No, so I can't see the resemblance. And then I'm like, it's a 50-year-old photograph. Maybe all white men look alike after their photo's been in a box for 50 years.
Or they just looked alike anyway.
I'm like, I cannot see it. So he says, and he keeps saying it's not safe for him to show the documents. He says there's a handwritten letter, a personnel list, an adoption document, and a medical record document. And now he is including all kinds of stuff all the time about MK Ultra. Although I don't see any proof of a connection there. He just keeps saying... and
that was a very specific project that...
Yes, and yeah. He's obviously getting more and more paranoid. So then in January of 2007, he posts a photo of stairs leading down into an underground bunker. Because that would be so hard to fake.
Look at these here concrete stairs.
So he claims he's explored this complex, drawn a map. He believes this is where the children were kept and experimented on. And one of the photos is like a big, like, furnace room. It's got big generators in it, but the rest of the complex seems to be empty. He shows us a photo of the lock that was holding the door shut, a photo of his little hand-drawn map. To me, those are not proof of anything.
I feel like I'm just gonna go to this blog just to follow him. his rabbit hole. Just
yeah, so the phone calls have started again. And this obsession, as he's now calling it, has cost him his marriage and his peace of mind. Then, in February 23rd of 2007, he gets a mysterious email about America's ResearchGate. And he posts it, and it says the gate only opens once, and the gate is now closed.
Is it a literal gate?
And it is signed, wait for it, by G. Cowsill. So he's Googling ResearchGate, America's ResearchGate, can't find anything. Now there is stuff out there. It's a place where scientists can go and collaborate. But I don't think it existed back then. But he finds the lyrics to Indian Lake by the Cowsills and finds all kinds of hidden messages.
Oh.
Tons of hidden messages in this song. I did not find the same hidden messages.
Were the Cowsills secretly CIA?
Maybe. Then there's, in April, you're going to love this. There's an article which he says would prove a connection between the Indian Lake Project and the Jonestown Massacre, if only he could reveal the name of the pertinent person, which he cannot.
Okay.
Then he posted an article that linked Jonestown, Donald Rumsfeld, the Nazis, NutraSweet, and President Reagan.
Holy shit.
Which I can't... I'm like, what the fuck does this have to do with children being experimented on in Indian Lake?
I fell down a Jonestown rabbit hole because there are a bunch of conspiracy theories.
Yes.
I don't recall if this one was
You don't recall the NutraSweet connection?
I don't. Was there NutraSweet in...
It was whoever developed NutraSweet had something to... Donald Rumsfeld. And President Reagan. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do not have a whole lot to say about President Reagan. However, I don't think he was involved in a NutraSweet mind control experiment.
I don't know. I really know very little about Reagan, technically, because I was a kid.
So, then in June of that year, he posts he can't go into the woods any longer because he's being followed by a white van. And there is a blurry picture of, like, the back of a white van.
Some poor mechanic or plumber. Or
he says it's hidden along the...
innocent kidnapper.
He keeps seeing it hidden near his house. He sees it hidden in the woods, and there are two guys with shotguns entering the woods, and it's not even hunting season. And I'm like, dude, you're in the middle of the woods. Two guys going into the woods with guns is really not, with shotguns, not that unusual.
And aren't there different hunting seasons?
There are. I don't think anything is, you can shoot anything in the middle of July or June.
I also think a lot of people do it anyway.
Yes, and they could have been target shooting. They could have been, anyway. And now, here in this post, he just noticed that some of the kids look like they're blind. Like, good catch. After he's been poring over these photographs for hours every day and rearranging them to see if a pattern emerges, he's just now noticed. So I'm like, nice catch, John.
And what leads him to believe they're blind?
I'll post those pictures.
Okay.
And you'll see.
Yeah.
It does look like, especially one. So, in July, cue the ominous music.
Ooh.
He goes out to pick up his newspaper, and there is a dead robin in the driveway next to his newspaper.
Okay, well that happens, though.
That clearly means he's being threatened.
Oh, because there's a dead pigeon when I went over to the pie bar the other day.
Ew! They're obviously being
not
threatened.
in the pie bar, but...
No. So, yes, and then he posts this long screed that, I'm not kidding you, starts with the French and Indian War and ends up with inoculating soldiers before the invasion of Iraq as proof of what the government is capable of.
Twitch.
Oh my God, if you could see twitching. Shannon's eyes twitching right now, it is hilarious.
Okay.
Then there's more Nazi theories. And do you remember the black helicopters?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, black helicopters.
I feel like maybe somebody put LSD in his
perhaps
drinking water.
So it drops off after that. There's like a post in 2008 about some people who've gone missing in the area, and it's forest rangers who are out patrolling these woods all the fucking time. They're like, there's nothing mysterious about it. You occasionally get people who are not experienced hikers. They don't know what they're doing, and they just kind of walk into the woods and get lost.
I imagine also woods are a good place for people to go to commit suicide, for example.
Yeah.
Homicide is a possibility,
Yes.
sure. But yeah, I would think that people occasionally disappearing in the rural New York woods wouldn't be that big a thing.
So then his last post is in February of 2013, and he says he will continue posting on his Twitter account. So I go to the Twitter account. There's exactly one post, and it says he will be sharing information soon. And this was in 2013.
Fantastic.
So, around Halloween in 2015, so 2 years after that, there was a fabricated story, and it says at the top that it is fabricated story, about a group doing a documentary on the Indian Lake project. And there is equally fabricated found footage from them asking questions around town. And there's the traditional, they're talking to a guy in a bar, and all of a sudden he freaks out and runs away, or, well, I can tell you what's going on, and somebody yanks him away. And they have the trip into the woods where, of course, that somebody mysteriously disappears, and then the camera falls to the ground, and you hear footsteps. So that is hilarious. That's very Blair Witch.
Wait, that's why I know this, because that was on Shudder for a while, I think.
So I will post, and that's just John stopped posting, and nobody knows, was there any truth to this? Did anything happen up there? But I am going to post the link to that video, because I think it's a crack up. It's because it's so obviously staged. Yeah. But they're really putting their all into it. It's the whole, we're going to out Blair Witch, the Blair Witch Project. And
the Blair Witch Project wasn't great to begin with, but it wouldn't have been on Shudder if it was just a video, but it reminds me of something, but I don't know what it is.
Oh, well, maybe when you watch it. And I will post some of the pictures from his website.
Okay.
So that people can see. And it's just, when you first start reading it, you're like, oh my God, could this have really happened? Well, yeah, there's a lot of land up there, but and you could hide stuff up there, but I'm like, they don't let anybody build in the Adirondack Park without 87,000 permits. So.
Yeah.
But I don't remember off the top of my head when the park was incorporated, so.
Could be, and military's different too, so.
Very true. So what are you going to talk about this week?
I am going to do the serial killer Samuel Little, who's been in the news actually recently. The FBI named him the choke and stroke killer. I shall explain why later. Choke and stroke killer.
Alrighty.
Terrible.
I've never heard of this.
Sources: biography.com, Wikipedia, CNN, ABC, CBS, and FBI.gov. They've actually got a good page on there.
The FBI.gov has some very interesting stuff on it.
There's actually videos with this guy talking about some of his victims and what he did with them that they haven't identified, because some of them are Jane Doe's.
Okay.
Because of the victim group from which he was stealing. So, Samuel Little is considered the most prolific serial killer by the FBI. While he claims 93 murders, the FBI has confirmed around 60. Occurring between 1970 and 2005.
Oh, that's recent.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah. From the sound of it, he was confined to a wheelchair after 2005. That's why it stopped. He was also in a long-term relationship with a woman who supported him by shoplifting. That woman died before he did. I did not see when she died. He was born June 7th, 1940 in Georgia. His mother appears to have been a teenage prostitute, possibly giving birth to him while in jail. There were rumors about that. He's the one who alleges she was a prostitute. His grandparents brought him up in Ohio. So he gets moved to Ohio. And he struggled with school. He ended up dropping out as a teen. Well before he dropped out, he's committing crimes. He's getting in trouble left and right. He's landing himself in juvie. After he got out, he kept moving to different states, being arrested repeatedly in those states for crimes like, there's a laundry list, but DUI, rape, fraud, armed robbery, solicitation, shoplifting, attacks on a government official. I really wanted more on that. And others. He was arrested more than 25 times by 1975.
So he would have been 35.
Mm-hmm. These crimes covered 11 states. He was arrested in 11 different states. During his approximately 10 years in prison for his collective early crimes, he learned how to box. He called himself a prize-fighting pugilist, but he did not continue it after prison. In his 20s, he moved to Florida where his mother lived and started working at a cemetery. Before his final arrest in 2012, he was arrested and tried for multiple murders and attempted murders, which he was acquitted on. The first was in 1982 in Pascagoula, Mississippi, for the murder of Melinda Rose LaPree, 22. He was not indicted by the grand jury, but they transferred him to Florida for another murder trial. This time, the woman was Patricia Ann Mount, age 26. The prosecution produced witnesses who identified him as having been with Mount before she disappeared. It says, quote, due to mistrust of witness testimonies, he was acquitted for this crime. Huh. Now, considering his victims tended to consist of streetwise women, sex workers, drug addicts, homeless women, I'm willing to bet, even though that quote is exactly the information they gave,
right,
that they mistrusted the witnesses because they fell into those categories.
Yes.
And so, but they didn't say it. In his own words, when speaking to the New York Times after being caught, quote, I never killed no senators or governors or fancy New York journalists, nothing like that. I stayed in the ghettos.
Yeah.
And he said he was intentionally seeking out this woman because he knew the police wouldn't
put any effort into
investigate these as hard. And actually, a lot of the women that he later confessed to were just written off as death by drug overdose, death by this, So I don't know if they thought that the signs of having been harmed were just what they had from living on the streets or what, but they had written them off as, natural deaths, drug overdoses, and the like, dying because they were exposed on the street. You know. In 1984, now living around San Diego, he kidnapped, beat, and strangled Lori Barros, a 22-year-old woman. She survived, and he was arrested.
Oh, my God.
Within a month, he was once again arrested, this time because police came upon him committing the crime. I don't know if his car was parked somewhere weird. The police check his car. There he is in the back seat with another victim. She had been beaten and strangled. Yep, but she's unconscious when they come across him. As with Barrows, she survived. He was put in prison for 2.5 years. Because no murder. Assault, whatever. He was released in 1987 and moved to Los Angeles. Being a boxer, he would find a female victim. He would punch her to knock her out cold. So that's where the pugilism comes in. Oh. Then he'd strangle her while masturbating, thus choke and stroke. Yeah. And
so he wasn't assaulting them sexually.
From what I could see, no. I mean, he had been arrested, earlier for rape. But no. So.
Okay.
He would strangle them and he would get off himself. And then he would ditch the bodies.
Ugh.
Often he just left them in the street or put them in a dumpster. One he threw off of a hill. One he left next to Route 68. What
a sleazeball.
Yeah. In 2012, while living in a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky, he was arrested for a narcotics charge and extradited to California. In California, again, that was where the narcotics charge was. His DNA was matched to 3 murders. Because at that point, that was the thing. Those of Carol Eileen Elfert, killed July 13th, 87. Guadalupe Duarte Apodaca, September 3rd, 1987. And Audrey Nelson Everett, August 14th, 1989. I don't think I'm going to mention any more names because, 60 confirmed I wasn't going to list them. I started at one point to do some that he'd admitted to, but then I took them out. Their bodies were left in the street to be found by the first person who happened across them. He was charged January 7th, 2013 for those murders, insisting upon his innocence. Soon it was announced police suspect him of several other murders after plugging him into VICAP, the FBI, and they'd be investigating those. He was found guilty of these 3 murders in 2014, sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. I think it was 3 consecutive life sentences. In November 2018, these are the ones I started listing because one guy goes in and talks to him, and he just opens the floodgates. He was trying to get moved out of the LA jail. He wanted to get moved to a different jail, and so he was striking deals. And it's just this flood, November of 2018, of this Mississippi Police Department announcing that he was responsible for this cold case.
Did he get moved out of the jail?
Yeah, I believe so. Just another one. But the indictment started rolling in within a month. December 2018 was his first indictment. His murder victims consisted of women between the ages of 19 and 55 across the states of Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, California, Maryland, Georgia, Louisiana, South Carolina, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Ohio. Some of the victims he's confessed to are still Jane Doe's because, again, these were women on the street.
Right.
They haven't been identified. A man had already been wrongfully convicted of at least one of the murders that Little ended up confessing to. And when he was interviewed by 60 Minutes, he said, quote, "Probably be numerous people who are been convicted and sent to penitentiary on my behalf. I say, if I can help get somebody out of jail, God might smile a little bit more on me." No, Samuel, I don't think so.
I don't know.
He was convicted of at least 8 of the murders. Ultimately, they were still questioning him, trying to at least be able to give the families a little closure. But most of the time in a case like this, they don't get tried for all of those. It costs a ton of money. Yeah.
And if he's already in jail for 150 years,
then it's just not worth taxpayer money. So he was convicted of 8 in different states.
Right.
But so during his time in prison, it was learned he was excellent at creating artwork with colored pencils. So they brought him some, and he's now drawn 26 of his victims, some of which the FBI have made public. These drawings have helped connect him to some of his murder victims or to confirm confessions. While he sometimes couldn't remember dates or names, he was able to describe the women really well, draw them well, and he could always state which car he was driving when he took them. He was considered to have an uncanny memory with the details of his murders. He died in prison this past December 2020. That's why he was in the news at 80 years old. There are videos available on the FBI.gov page where he describes women he killed, where he put the bodies, and they are associated with one of his drawings. So they're trying to find identities for these women. Right. One of them was a trans woman at least, just so I don't know how many others. But yeah, I watched him talking, and it's just, for him, it's just a conversation. I picked her up.
All those details.
That's the thing. They were like, wow. And they do associate with the facts for the ones that they have figured out where the body was discovered.
It's not like he's making this all up and blowing smoke. Like he got arrested for 3 of them and he's making the rest of them up to get attention or whatever.
No, they've been able to go.
They've been able to. Holy shit.
Yeah. So that's why they're pretty confident about 60 of them. I don't know if they'll ever figure out the additional ones, but he didn't always remember their names, but he remembers their faces. He remembers what he did to them. He remembers where he met them, where he picked them up.
I'm guessing in some cases he probably didn't even get their names.
I don't know. So the way he's talking, I could see how somebody would chat with him. There's one, and I'm like, would she have died had the circumstances been different? He met her at a bar. She was the trans woman. That's why I mentioned that one specifically, because it was the video I watched all the way through. And he meets her at a bar or something, and then he runs into her the next day. So first of all, that first one, she lived, right? Runs into her the next day. He offers her a ride home. He takes her home. Her roommate asks them to pick up some shaving cream. So he takes her back out and kills her. And I'm like, I bet that roommate feels like absolute shit. Because he had dropped her off. So the question is, was it something he would have pursued, or would she have just been home?
Yeah. Or would he have run into her the next day?
Right. So he did draw her. She's not been identified.
Did it say with other women if it was a first-time contact or if he had repeated contact or no?
Probably if I'd continued watching the videos and reading it would have said, because it was, I think there's 5 of the videos and drawings that the FBI had put out to try and identify these women.
But how long could you have spent researching this?
I could have easily spent a lot of time. Yeah. Again, rabbit hole, but I was like, okay, I'll watch these later. So that link will be posted if people want to watch. It's just, he's like, and he's not, sometimes the very disrespect, the slut, the this. There's nothing about that in him when he's talking about them, and I didn't copy down the quote, but at one point he said, he was talking about boxing and drawing being the only two things he was good at, and now he just spends time with his babies. He was talking about his victims, his babies, my babies. Most of his victims were black women. He was black man. He's one of the few black serial killers in the U.S. because that seems to be a very white male dominated field, we'll say.
Yeah.
But also other minority women. I don't know if any of them were white, so I don't know. But serial killers tend to stick with their own race.
Right.
That is a general, not concrete, but a general rule with serial killers, right? So, and that was another reason that it was felt that their deaths would be overlooked. Not only are they women on the street, they are women of color. Because there were Hispanic women that, But he didn't... It's just odd to me that he almost affectionately talks about them instead of it being, I hate women, or, they were tramps, or they were garbage, or they were this. They weren't. They were his babies.
Was there anything in what you read about his pathology, about why he did what he did?
No, he didn't. It wasn't something where he said, because my mom was a prostitute.
Right. I mean, sometimes they go into that and sometimes they don't, but...
Yeah. He didn't speak ill. He moved back in with his mom at one point. It doesn't say she abused him. It doesn't say even really she neglected him, although obviously he wasn't living with his grandparents because she wasn't neglecting him.
Right.
So there's that whole mommy thing in there, right? But he doesn't say anything about that.
If he was born in prison...
If he was, yeah, that one wasn't substantiated.
Okay.
It was like this source said that he was, none of the other sources said, and that source said he might have been.
Because I was going to say, if he was born in prison, it could have been they contacted her parents and said, can you take him?
It sounded like, and again, they didn't go too deep into details of his childhood or anything like that, which is rare anyway, isn't it? They're always quick to blame it on the mom, but it sounded like he moved in with his grandparents when he was old enough to remember having done so.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he moved back with her somewhere else. So it was a temporary placement. And he got into a lot of trouble when he was living with them. So probably they were kind of happy to hand him back over
That's possible.
Yeah, to his mom. But yeah, no, they're just, and of course this being one of those more recent ones where he's in the news, there's always less information than, say, the Golden State Killer before he was caught, and how much information there was about him, because he was still a mystery. Samuel Little wasn't a mystery. They weren't connected. A lot of them were considered accidental, or,
that still
deaths.
blows me away.
Well, that's why, if he was strangling them, that's why I'm like, I guess they just assumed that they'd been abused by somebody earlier. But is there not a difference in the bruising and petechia and the eyes and stuff like that? Well, there was no opinion from a coroner,
That was my question. Are they doing autopsies?
Probably not.
Because if they're just finding a dead body...
I imagine that it sounds like he had strong hands. If you die fast enough, there might be less bruising. Because the bruising's got to have time to happen.
That's true.
So perhaps that was it, that they looked faded. I have no idea. That's probably one to talk to a coroner about, right? But yeah.
Does anyone know a coroner? We can.
We do. We could have had Megan on. We need to have Megan on in the future. Megan Butters. So we'll do that at some point. Reach out to her. Mm-hmm. That'll be a good guest. Yes. So, well, I don't know if she's a medical examiner or coroner. And then there's always, Chris Herndon lives locally and is a coroner and used to talk to writers groups and stuff like that. But yeah, so
we have met some interesting
people. We've been inordinately blessed in that way. Because a lot of those people go into the writing community, or at least get sucked in to talk to us.
Because we're like, come tell us
all the dastardly details.
Yes, tell us about murders. Tell us about people wreaking havoc on other people.
Yeah, but I could see it wouldn't be unusual for a woman living on the streets to have signs of abuse. And for them to just be like, well, her John beat her. Or, well, because if he was punching him out, there'd be that initial injury.
Right.
But would it look like something that had killed her? I don't know.
Or if any of them had issues with drugs.
A lot of them did. Yeah.
So are we looking at the fact, if they've got recent track marks or signs of having done drugs, how far are they going to look? to see if
they're not going to look far because there's nobody there to fight. I mean, there's a lot
nobody
of things
fighting for these girls.
No, and even for people who don't live on the street, a lot of the times, if there's not something blatantly that looks like murder, no, you know this homeless woman, you know she gets beat, or you know that this woman John beats her, or not John, but her pimp beats her all the time, or John's, but you know this person abuses drugs and that she's gotten beaten up trying to get money or you know for this or drugs for this, so I could see like this is, I guess. And of course many of the Jane Does were, this woman was obviously strangled and probably depended on the coroner or medical examiner or whatever, so he just skirted it by he knew exactly who he was victimizing and why. He didn't hate them because they were on the streets, he just knew that they were an easy target. He seemed like I don't know, not an unintelligent man. Then again, he really didn't do anything with his life. If his partner was supporting him by shoplifting and he was in a homeless shelter when he was
right.
Yeah. So he did menial jobs. You know, he did that cemetery job. He said at one point he was an ambulance. He worked with an ambulance. So,
oh my God. How frightening is that?
Right? Oh, it's really frightening. So, yeah. And at no point did anybody think there was a serial killer with all these women. And especially when he spread it out so far, that's one of those things. That's why they can't connect so many, like the truck driver ones.
Either he didn't like the cold or he didn't like Yankees. Because it was,
as far as he went, Maryland is still a southern state, very much so, and Ohio was probably, he killed a lot of women in Ohio too. I was looking at that and there's very specific.
Yeah, that's kind of
maybe he was just there in the summer.
The Midwest.
Yeah. But other than that, he stuck to low.
Yeah.
Like he didn't even make it up to Oregon, which is part of that magical serial killer place. Yes. But, yeah, I mean, that's so, 1970 to 2005 is a long time to be active.
That is a very long time to be killing people.
And he made good with it, I guess. But yeah, it's like, I met this one at a restaurant. I met this one, one of them, she was taken, the last she was seen was getting out of a cab outside a hospital to go visit her sister in the hospital.
My God.
I'm like, how do you lure that person into your car?
I mean, I can't remember how I met you. I mean, I know how I met you, but I don't remember the day I met you. I don't know. So, yeah, but he knew. He knew all those details, and they made sense. They copped with, I met her at the hospital. Wow. And he could just pull them up, and he's just sitting there. The guy's asking him questions he's not even having to think about on these videos. If you watch them, he's just, oh yeah, her. Okay, well, blah 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 blah. I met her here, and we did this, and we drove here, and I was driving this car. What kind of mind can hold all that detail?
One that was wasted, obviously.
Yes. I think that is clear.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that more people haven't heard of Samuel Little, because he just didn't catch, I think because he didn't have a chance to catch the imagination before he was caught. Those serial killers that are big, there's a serial killer and you know what's happening and you're scared as hell because they're out there. Mm-hmm. And with him, that was never true. So nobody knows about him because they didn't know about him until he got caught. And then it was this kind of slow roll, right? And especially because most of it didn't come out until 2018. Until 2018, November, so the end of 2018, he'd killed 3 women as far as anybody knew. Right? In one city.
Right.
So that's also why. And it was so recent. Serial killers, the information about serial killers just doesn't get out the way they used to. And I think that's part of it. There was that media proliferation.
Yes.
That's why we hear about them in the 80s. Right?
Yes.
And the 70s. Because it was all over the media. That was when people were just eating up stuff like that. When people were still watching the news. Not everybody watches the news anymore. And if they do, they're not watching necessarily local news. A lot of them get their news from social media or they get it from online. So until he died, nobody knew, because that's when he really hit the news, is when he died. At the end of 2020.
Damn.
So it's fascinating, though.
Just that he got away with that for so long, and he probably just
really
blended
chose
in.
Well.
He chose, yes, for
well,
what he was
obviously,
doing.
he wasn't somebody with a ton of money either. So he belonged in these places where he was hunting, right? So, yeah.
Wow.
Good show, old chap. So, all right. If you guys want to send us any stories about anything, it doesn't have to pertain to what we've talked about.
No, but if you do know anything about Indian Lake, please let me know. Or if you know the true identity of John.
John. And what's up with him?
What is up with him?
Maybe he got into a new relationship and she was like, nope.
That could be.
Stop with the cray-cray, John. Send that in to us. You can email us at mysteriesmonstersmayhem@gmail.com. You can send it in via the form on our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com. And you can go to our Facebook page, though. We don't really want you to submit your stories via there, but feel free to post about other stuff and interesting stuff there. And that's Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem is the group. And please like, subscribe, rate wherever you're listening.
Like us. Share us.
Like us. We officially, I haven't posted it yet. I can tell you, we hit the 500 listens or whatever.
Yes. Downloads?
Yeah, downloads last week.
Yes, I think I saw that.
Yeah. So, yay!
Yeah, so we post extra stuff on the Facebook page, the photos. We're gonna put up a couple of videos there for this one.
I may not put them up separately, but I'll probably do the FBI.gov link separately so people can go view them because they're embedded on that page.
Okay.
So I think probably I could get them from YouTube. But if you go to the FBI page, there's pictures of him through the years. Much more interesting. There's also a photo. There's a kind of a grid of him through the years. And it's all his arrest pictures. But it's Getty Images, and I'm not fucking with that. So they can go to the FBI page. I'm not sharing that. I don't remember all the details, but I know that there's been issues there.
Yes.
So, nope. No touchy. But
you can share the link.
That's right. FBI.gov. Just go there. It's a neat. I need to just comb through that website and the Unsolved Mysteries website more.
Yes, the FBI website. I've been there a couple of times. Got led there, and it was like they are sharing all this information.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not saying they don't clean up anything they put out there because they very well might. But some of the stuff I saw was not flattering to the FBI.
Oh, good for.
It wasn't. It was older stuff.
Right. They've got to acknowledge. I mean, if you read FBI Diaries by Pete Klismet, I mean, the FBI, when it started, was kind of a shoddy, thrown together patchwork. Let's pull all these people in. Not all of them have police backgrounds, of course. Right. And so, it was a strange mashup of people to be doing investigative type work when they didn't necessarily have that background.
Right.
And it actually was not high budget at all. Because he talks about them having a recording device and it was the size of a case of soda or like a case of beer. So not discreet, not the little bugs that you see in all the movies.
Oh, now they're like,
yeah. So anyway, interesting stuff. Definitely, I would check out that FBI.gov and just look through that. All right, guys, thank you for listening.
Thank you. We'll see you or talk to you next week.
Bye.
Have a good week. Bye.